The door that opened after thousands of years. The door opened slowly. Light entered a space that had not seen it for thousands of years. Deep inside the Great Pyramid of Egypt, beyond sealed stone blocks and narrow passages, modern explorers reached a place no living person had ever recorded seeing before. There were no hieroglyphs on the walls, no decorations, no instructions, only stone. The blocks were cut with extraordinary precision, flat surfaces, straight edges, joints so tight they appeared seamless. This level of stonework was unexpected, especially for a structure built more than 4,000 years ago. For a moment, no one spoke, because this stone raised a simple but powerful question. How did people, without modern machines, shape and place material like this? And what else remained hidden, untouched, and unknown? The pyramid under the sun. The Great Pyramid stands alone on the Giza plateau, surrounded by sand and sky. Massive, silent, unmoving. It has watched storms pass. It has watched empires rise and fall. It has watched time itself change the world around it. Yet it remains, not just as a monument, but as a challenge. To historians, to engineers, to anyone who believes the past was simple. To understand it, we must return to a time before Egypt was an empire. Life before kings and crowns. Long before Egypt had pharaohs, crowns, or monumental cities, life along the Nile was uncertain. The river gave water and fertile soil, but it also flooded without warning. Villages could be destroyed overnight. Crops could vanish. Beyond the river lay the desert. Hot, dry, endless. To the early Egyptians, nature was powerful and unpredictable, and nothing frightened them more than death. But death, to them, was not an ending. It was a transition. Death as a doorway. Ancient Egyptians believed that life continued after death. The soul, they believed, could survive if the body survived. The body was not just a shell. It was a home. If that home decayed, the soul would be lost. This belief shaped everything that followed. At first, the dead were buried in shallow pits in the desert. The dry sand preserved the bodies naturally. Over time, people noticed something remarkable. The bodies remained intact. To them, this was not coincidence. It was a sign. The first tombs. To protect the dead more carefully, Egyptians began building tombs. These were called mastabas, flat-roofed, rectangular structures made from mud brick. They were simple. They were practical. But they had a weakness. Mud brick erodes. Time always wins. Kings wanted something stronger. Something permanent. Djoser and the First Revolution in stone. Around 4,700 years ago, a king named Djoser ruled Egypt. Djoser wanted to be remembered. He turned to his chief architect and advisor, Imhotep. Imhotep made a decision that would change history. Instead of mud brick, he used stone. Instead of one mastaba, he stacked them, one on top of another. 6 levels rose above the desert. The step pyramid of Saqqara was born. For the first time, humans built in stone on a scale previously reserved for myth. It was not just a tomb. It was a statement. From steps to perfection, the step pyramid proved something important. Stone could last. Future kings learned quickly. They wanted smoother shapes, greater height, more perfection. Generations experimented. Some pyramids cracked. Some collapsed. Some were abandoned mid-construction. Failure was part of the process. Until one king demanded everything. Khufu's impossible command. That king was Khufu. Khufu ruled Egypt at the height of its power. He commanded vast resources, skilled labor, and unmatched authority. But like all rulers, Khufu feared one thing: being forgotten. He ordered the construction of a pyramid larger and more precise than anything before it. The Great Pyramid of Giza. More than 2 million stone blocks, some weighing several tons. Granite transported from Aswan, hundreds of kilometers away. No iron tools. No wheels as we know them. No modern machines. And yet, the stones were placed with astonishing accuracy. How was it built? Historians propose many explanations. Ramps, levers, carefully organized labor. Evidence shows the builders were skilled workers, not slaves, and that Egypt had strong administrative systems. But the exact methods remain debated. No single ramp design explains all features. No written record describes the full process. The pyramid keeps its secrets. Inside the stone giant, inside the Great Pyramid, the mystery deepens. Narrow passages rise upward. Chambers align with precision. Shafts point toward specific regions of the sky. To the Egyptians, stars were not decoration. They were destinations. The pyramid was designed not just to protect a body, but to guide a soul. Everything inside is measured. Nothing is random. The empty tomb. When explorers entered the pyramid in ancient times, they expected treasure. They found none. No gold. No inscriptions. No mummy. Only an empty stone sarcophagus. Was the pyramid robbed? Or was its purpose more symbolic than physical? Historians still debate this question. The absence speaks as loudly as presence. The end of the Pyramid Age. After Kufu, pyramids continued, but they changed. Some were smaller. Some were rushed. Some collapsed due to weaker foundations. Eventually, Egyptian kings abandoned pyramid building altogether. They turned to hidden tombs in the Valley of the Kings. The age of pyramids ended. But the monuments remained. The desert as a keeper of secrets, sand-covered roads. Sand-buried structures. Sand-erased evidence. For centuries, the pyramids stood while civilizations rose and fell around them. Then modern science returned, with new tools. What modern scans revealed. Using non-invasive techniques like muon scanning, researchers looked inside the pyramids. They expected solid stone. Instead, they found voids. Large empty spaces never described in ancient texts. Their purpose remains unknown. These are not myths. They are measured anomalies, still being studied. The pyramid, it seems, is not finished telling its story. The locked book. The Great Pyramid is not a solved mystery. It is a structure that continues to challenge assumptions. Every discovery raises new questions. As night falls over Giza, the pyramids glow under the moon. Silent, unmoving, waiting. Somewhere behind stone that has not shifted in over 4,000 years, knowledge still sleeps. And when it is uncovered, our understanding of the ancient world may change once again. When the desert was loud, the sun rises over the desert. The pyramids cast long shadows across the sand, silent, unmoving, eternal. But this silence is an illusion. For 1,500 years ago, this place was alive. Voices filled the air. Stone struck stone. Wood creaked under weight. Ropes tightened and loosened again and again. The ground shook with footsteps. This was not a quiet burial ground. It was one of the largest construction sites the ancient world had ever seen. And the people who worked here were not who history once claimed they were. The slave myth. For centuries, one story dominated books, films, and imagination. That the pyramids were built by slaves. Forced labor. Chains. Whips. Broken bodies. The story felt dramatic. It felt powerful. And it felt believable. But archaeology tells a different story. A quieter story. A truer one. The discovery that changed everything. Near the pyramids of Giza, archaeologists uncovered something unexpected. Not tombs for kings, but villages. Carefully planned settlements with homes, bakeries, storage rooms, and workspaces. They found tools, medical instruments, food remains, and graves. These were not the graves of enslaved people discarded without care. They were respectful burials, close to the pyramids themselves. A privilege reserved only for honored workers. Evidence written in bone. Skeletons tell stories. And these skeletons spoke clearly. Many showed signs of healed injuries. Broken bones that had been set. Bodies that had been cared for. Workers who had survived accidents and returned to work. This was not disposable labor. This was a valued workforce. Men who were fed, treated, and respected. The pyramids were not built by broken people. They were built by professionals. A nation at work. Every year, the Nile flooded. Fields disappeared underwater. Farming stopped. This was not a disaster. It was opportunity. Farmers traveled to Giza in massive numbers, tens of thousands at a time. They worked in rotating shifts. This was not slavery. It was service. A national project. A shared purpose. The names hidden in stone. Inside the pyramids, archaeologists found graffiti. Not vandalism. Signatures. Team names carved where only builders would see them. Names like Friends of Kufu, Drunkards of Menkor. These were not the words of prisoners. They were the words of proud workers. Men who knew they were part of something that would outlast them. The brutality of stone cutting was slow. Painfully slow. Limestone blocks were freed using copper tools, stone hammers, wooden wedges, and sand. Days passed for a single block. Weeks for precision. Granite was even harder. Granite resists metal tools. Yet Egyptians shaped it using pounding stones and endless patience. Every block had to be exact. One mistake could ruin an entire row. This was not brute force. It was discipline. Stones too heavy to ignore. Some blocks weigh over 70 tons. Even today, moving such weight is difficult. There are cranes that can do it, but with modern engineering. The ancient Egyptians had none of that. And yet, the stones rose. Slowly, carefully, precisely. How they did it remains one of archaeology's greatest debates. The ramp question. Most scholars agree ramps played a role. But what kind? Straight ramps would need to stretch impossibly far. Spiral ramps leave no clear traces. Some evidence suggests ramps built inside the pyramid itself, hidden forever once construction ended. Others point to water channels and harbors that brought stone closer than once believed. No single theory explains everything. And that uncertainty matters, because it reminds us how much we still do not know. Aligning with the universe, then there is the alignment. The Great Pyramid points almost perfectly to true north. Not magnetic north. True north. The margin of error is astonishingly small. The builders had no compasses, no satellites. They used the sky. By tracking stars that circled the northern sky, ancient astronomers could find a perfect axis. When the stars crossed, they marked the line. Stone followed sky. Architecture followed astronomy. A chamber built around stone. Inside the pyramid lies the king's chamber. At its center sits a granite box carved from a single block. It has no lid, no writing, no decoration. It is too large to have been carried through the corridors, which means the chamber was built around it. Above the chamber are 5 hidden relief spaces, stacked like shields. Their purpose is clear. They protect the room from crushing weight. No other pyramid does this. Why was this chamber so important? Shafts that defy simple answers. Small shafts extend from the king's and queen's chambers. For years, they were believed to be ventilation shafts. But they are too narrow for people, and some are sealed. When a robot explored one shaft, it found something strange. A small stone door, with copper handles. Handles on a sealed door, deep inside a pyramid. This was not accidental. Someone expected that door to matter. Builders fade, stone remains, the workers aged. Their villages emptied. Sand reclaimed their homes. Their names faded from memory. But the pyramids remained. They stood through looting, through earthquakes, through the collapse of kingdoms. Buildings that looked stronger fell. The pyramids did not, because they were not just massive. They were intelligently designed. Stone that remembers. At night, the desert cools. Stars return. The pyramids glow softly under moonlight. They point upward, not only to the sky, but to memory. The builders believed one thing deeply. To be remembered is to live forever. Yet even now, their greatest secrets remain sealed. Behind stone doors. Inside unknown chambers. Within voids modern science has only just discovered. The silence before discovery. Modern scanners peer deeper than ever before. They see empty spaces where none were expected. Large voids. Hidden volumes. Spaces untouched since construction. And suddenly, the question changes. Not how the pyramids were built, but why they were built this way. The stone remains silent. But the silence is about to break. Beneath the footsteps, the machines hum softly beneath the desert. Their sound is barely noticeable. Above them, tourists walk freely. They laugh. They take photos. They move on. They do not know what lies beneath their feet. Deep inside the Great Pyramid, scientists have discovered something unexpected. A space where no space should exist. A long, tall, silent void. Not carved by thieves. Not formed by collapse. Not created by accident. It was designed. And its purpose remains unknown. The tomb that breaks the rules. For thousands of years, the pyramids were explained with a simple idea. They were tombs. A king died. A pyramid was built. The body was placed inside. End of story. But the Great Pyramid refuses to fit this explanation. No mummy has ever been found inside it. No burial goods. No gold. No inscription declaring ownership. Just empty chambers. Stone corridors. And silence. A silence that does not belong to a tomb. The quietest monument in Egypt. Ancient Egyptian tombs usually speak loudly. Walls are covered in writing. Spells guide the soul. Names are repeated endlessly to keep memory alive. Yet the Great Pyramid says nothing. No prayers. No carvings. No stories. The most powerful king built the most silent monument. This alone makes the pyramid unusual. It forces a question historians once avoided. Why would the greatest ruler choose silence? When a tomb doesn't behave like one, the king's chamber sits high inside the pyramid, not underground, not hidden beneath the earth. Its granite walls are smooth and undecorated. At its center rests a stone box carved from a single block. No lid, no writing, no symbolism. The box shows signs of wear, as if something heavy once rested inside, but not embodied. The unfinished chamber. Lower inside the pyramid lies the queen's chamber. Its name is misleading. No queen was ever buried there. The room was left unfinished. Walls rough. Design incomplete. It appears abandoned mid-plan. Why would a project of such precision leave a chamber unresolved? The pyramid feels less like a completed tomb and more like an interrupted process. Shafts that point beyond earth. Then there are the shafts. Narrow channels extending from the chambers. They do not lead outside in a useful way. They are too small for people, too precise for ventilation. Their directions are deliberate. They point toward specific stars. Stars linked to ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Stars believed to be the destination of the soul. The pyramid was not guiding the body. It was guiding something else. Death as a journey. To the ancient Egyptians, death was movement, not an ending. The soul traveled. It ascended. It transformed. The pyramid may not have been a container. It may have been a process, a structured path from human existence to divine continuity. Stone shaped to guide a transition. The mountain humans built. The pyramid's shape matters. Wide at the base, narrow at the top. A perfect artificial mountain. Mountains were sacred. They touched the sky. They connected worlds. The pyramid declared something bold. Humans could build their own connection to the heavens. Stone replacing nature. Order replacing chaos. A structure that behaves strangely. Inside the pyramid, space behaves differently. Temperatures remain unusually stable. Sound travels in unexpected ways. Some chambers amplify echoes. Others absorb them. Engineers studying the structure note unusual internal stress distribution. The builders understood balance. Weight. Space. Not instinctively. Precisely. Mathematics carved in stone. The pyramid's dimensions reveal patterns. Ratios that reflect solar movement. Angles aligned with celestial cycles. Measurements that unexpectedly relate to the Earth itself. Scholars debate whether these relationships were symbolic or practical. But coincidence alone does not explain consistency. The builders were intentional. Even if their purpose remains uncleared, the pyramid no one could copy. Later rulers tried to repeat the achievement. They failed. Some pyramids cracked. Others collapsed. Many leaned or were abandoned. Only the Great Pyramid stands nearly unchanged. It was built once and never truly replicated. Whatever knowledge was used, it was not passed on. Science looks inside without touching. In the modern era, exploration changed. Chisels were replaced by scanners. In 2017, researchers used muon imaging, particles from space that passed through stone. They expected density. They found emptiness, a vast void above the Grand Gallery, larger than a bus, hidden, undocumented, unexplained. A chamber without access. There is no known entrance, no doorway, no text describing it. The void exists without permission to be entered. Opening it could damage the pyramid forever. So it remains sealed, observed, but untouched. Explanations that feel incomplete. Some suggest weight reduction. Others propose an abandoned design. These explanations are possible, but they feel insufficient. The Great Pyramid is deliberate. Nothing else inside it is accidental. Why would this be? A message in stone. As the sun sets, shadows stretch across the sand. The pyramid feels less like a tomb and more like a message, a statement from the past. We understood something. Something about transformation, about continuity, about permanence. And time has not yet translated it. Questions multiply. With every scan, new anomalies appear. More voids, more irregularities, more unanswered questions. The deeper scientists look, the less certain the old explanations become. The pyramid resists closure. The silence before the next truth. The desert wind grows louder. Stars return to the sky. The pyramids remain still. They have waited for thousands of years. They can wait longer, because their final purpose has not yet been spoken. And understanding it requires understanding what came next. When belief shifted, when power moved, when memory began to fade. The story is not over. It is only changing shape. How time really destroys things. Time does not destroy everything with violence. It does not strike like lightning. It erases slowly. First, people forget why something mattered. Then they forget who made it. Then they forget what it truly was. This is how civilizations lose their past. And this is exactly what happened to the pyramids. A world that moved on. Centuries after the last pyramid was completed, Egypt began to change. Power shifted. New dynasties rose. New cities replaced old capitals. New religious ideas gained influence. The pyramids still stood, but they no longer stood at the center of life. They became monuments of an earlier age. Visible, respected, but no longer understood. The vanishing of the guardians. The people who once protected the pyramids disappeared. The priests who understood their meaning died without passing everything on. The builders' techniques were no longer taught. Stone knowledge faded into ritual. Ritual faded into legend. Eventually, even Egyptians themselves could no longer explain how the pyramids were built. They gazed at them with awe, just like we do today. When Egypt was conquered, Egypt did not fall all at once. It was weakened in waves. Libyan rulers, Nubian kings, Assyrian armies, Persian administrators. Each conquest strained Egypt's traditions. Temples were damaged. Records were lost. Priestly lineages ended. The pyramids survived, but their voice grew quieter. The Persian interlude. When the Persians ruled Egypt, they respected its monuments. But respect is not understanding. They governed for control, not continuity. They collected taxes, moved capitals, changed administration. The pyramids became relics, symbols of an ancient authority that no longer ruled the land. Greece arrives in Egypt. Then came the Greeks. Alexander the Great entered Egypt and was welcomed. After his death, Greek rulers governed the land. They admired Egyptian wisdom. They studied it. They wrote about it. But they also filtered it through their own worldview. When truth became legend, Greek writers blended Egyptian history with speculation. Facts mixed with exaggeration. Metaphors became literal stories. Over time, accuracy faded. One Greek writer claimed the pyramids were built by slaves. That idea spread. It survived centuries. It outlived the truth. Rome takes possession. Later, the Romans arrived. To them, Egypt was not a teacher. It was a resource. Stone was removed from ancient buildings. Temples were repurposed. Blocks were reused. Centuries later, even pyramid casing stones were taken to build new structures. Damage was not always intentional, but it was permanent. When nature finished what humans started, earthquakes shook the land. The smooth limestone casing cracked and fell. The pyramids lost their bright, white skin. Their perfect surfaces became stepped and rough. Once blinding under the sun, they became weathered silhouettes. The age of myth. By the Middle Ages, the pyramids were surrounded by stories. Some claimed they held secret knowledge. Others said ancient books were hidden inside. Some believed they were built before a great flood. None of these stories could be proven, because the original truth had no voice left. Europe rediscovers Egypt. In the 1700s and 1800s, Europe returned to Egypt. Explorers arrived with curiosity and with ambition. They measured. They recorded. They also broke, removed, and took. Artifacts were shipped away. Chambers were forced open. Interpretations were written without cultural context. When bias replaced evidence, some explorers believed the pyramids were too advanced to be Egyptian. They could not accept that ancient Africans built them. This belief spread quietly. It shaped books, museums, and education. And it erased the builders from their own creation. Archaeology pushes back. Over time, archaeology changed. Evidence replaced assumption. Workers' villages were uncovered. Tools were found. Skeletons told stories of labor and care. The builders returned to history, not as myths, but as humans. Skilled, organized, brilliant. A truth restored, but incomplete. One truth became undeniable. The pyramids were not built by magic. They were built by people. But even with this knowledge, the deeper mystery remained. Questions that refused to die. Why was no body found? Why were chambers sealed? Why are there hidden voids? Why such perfect alignment? Why was this level of precision never repeated? Answers exist, but none satisfy completely. The debate that still burns. Modern Egyptologists disagree. Some argue the pyramids were royal tombs. Others say they were ceremonial symbols. Some see political power. Others see spiritual transformation. There is no final verdict. And that uncertainty matters. Who controls the story? After 4,500 years, the pyramids still decide what is known. They reveal some things. They conceal others. They resist final explanation. Witnesses to everything. At night, the pyramids rise in silence. They have watched empires fall, gods forgotten, languages disappear. Humans argue, conquer, destroy, and rebuild. They remain. A new age of discovery. Now, machines peer through stone. Scanners grow sharper. Hidden spaces appear. Secrets that survived millennia may soon surface. But knowledge has consequences. The stone prepares to speak, because understanding the pyramids means facing uncomfortable truths about power, about belief, about how advanced the ancient world truly was, and about how much humanity has forgotten. The approaches, and the stone is ready to speak. The power of stillness. The pyramids do not move. They do not speak. They do not demand attention. They simply exist. And in a world that constantly changes, that stillness becomes power. Civilizations rush forward. Empires rise and fall. Ideas explode and vanish. But the pyramids remain exactly where they were placed, silent witnesses to human ambition. The modern illusion of mastery. The modern world believes it understands everything. We measure distance to the stars. We scan beneath the earth. We reduce mysteries to data. Yet the pyramids remind us of something uncomfortable. Knowledge can be lost. Progress is not permanent. The past is not always primitive. Sometimes, it is simply forgotten. Standing before time. Each year, millions travel to Egypt. They walk across hot sand. They look up, and they feel small. Not because the pyramids are frightening, but because of time. This structure was ancient when Rome was young. It stood before Cleopatra was born. It existed long before the Bible was written. Entire civilizations passed like seasons. The pyramid did not notice. Waves against stone. Empires rise loudly. They fall quietly. The pyramid watched both. It watched languages disappear. Borders dissolve. Gods replaced by new gods. Kings shouted their names into history. The pyramid said nothing and outlived them all. The debate that never ends. Modern scholars still argue about its purpose. Some say tomb. Some say ritual gateway. Some say cosmic symbol of order. Different conclusions. Same evidence. But one fact unites every serious researcher. Nothing like the Great Pyramid was ever built again. Not before. Not after. Ma'at in stone. The ancient Egyptians believed in Ma'at. Balance. Truth. Order. Without Ma'at, the world would collapse into chaos. The pyramids were Ma'at made physical. Perfect orientation. Careful proportion. Mathematical balance. They were not monuments of haste. They were monuments of patience. Built for forever, the pyramids were not designed for a lifetime. They were not designed for a dynasty. They were designed for eternity. Stone over mud. Precision over speed. Endurance over beauty. And eternity answered. Surviving the impossible. Pollution darkened the air. Earthquakes shook the land. Wars passed nearby. Cities crumbled. Temples fell. The pyramids endured. Not untouched, but undefeated. Discoveries that refuse to end. Even today, the story is unfinished. Hidden corridors are found. Unknown chambers revealed. Tools reshape timelines. Each discovery delivers the same message. The ancient world was underestimated. Not because it lacked intelligence, but because it used patience instead of speed. The discipline of the builders. The builders did not rush. They planned across decades, sometimes across generations. A king could begin construction knowing he would never see it finished. Because the pyramid was not about the present. It was about memory, legacy over ego. Modern monuments chase recognition. Ancient monuments chased permanence. The pyramid was not built to impress strangers thousands of years later. It was built to outlive death. And it succeeded. A structure that remembers. At sunset, the desert turns gold. The sky burns red. The Great Pyramid seems almost alive. As if it remembers. It has watched humanity change clothes, beliefs, and languages. It has watched us forget lessons and learn them again. Not a demand for worship. The pyramids do not ask for worship. They do not ask for mystery. They ask for understanding. And perhaps that is why they still trouble us. Because understanding them means accepting something difficult. The uncomfortable realization. If people 4,500 years ago could plan on this scale, build with this precision, think in terms of eternity, Then the question changes. The question that replaces all others. The question is no longer, how did they do it? The real question becomes, what have we lost? The silence that endures. The pyramids do not answer. They never explain. They never correct us. They simply stand, watching, waiting, outlasting time itself.